So I'll go ahead and start. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Janice Whiting, and I'm going to be your host and participant for this blab. And we have Tanya Harris in Australia. I'm in California, USA, and Tanya's in Sydney, Australia. And we're here to talk about what do you think the best way to develop leaders are or is in a company. And there's several different layers to this that we're going to talk about. And we're both from a company called iCom4. We're the co-founders and basically the doers of all. and we know leadership. I'm going to go ahead and first let Tanya introduce herself, and maybe I'll come back to me and talk a little bit about my background and my experience in and around developing leaders. So you guys know that we're coming at you with this conversation from a pretty big background in this area. So Tanya, I'm going to turn it over to you real quick.
You hear the feedback?
Oh, you know what? Do a refresh. Try refreshing. And also, you might need to get a headset.
Right. Okay, I'm going to move in the house to another location.
Are you going to move? All right. I know.
Oh, no, headset here. I was thinking, what do I do with that headset? The feedback's gone. So
okay,
you
that's me.
Myself or what I think about leadership? Sorry, it was cutting out.
First, I want you to introduce yourself and why are you sitting on this panel? What makes you qualified to even remotely talk about leadership in any way, shape, or form? I'm dying to know this. She's our COO, and I'm really curious about this one.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome, Sandy and Trevor. If you're here, I'm not sure who's on. Say hi if you're actually on listening. That would be great to know if you're there. And of course, you're welcome to have a seat anytime and join the conversation. We do have some structured questions. And hi. Okay. Oh, hi, Busy Fizzy. Hi, Busy Fizzy. I have a tribe. I have a whole group of friends you don't know anything about, Tanya. You don't know anything about this group of people.
I know Sandy. Sandy's on.
All right. You get to know one then. So what we're doing, we're talking about leadership today. So if you're here, I'm assuming you have an interest in some aspect of this. Either you're thinking about yourself as a leader, you're thinking about inside of a company, helping a company develop leaders, or you're thinking about, I don't know, you're here because of this topic called leadership, or you're just friends and you're being really nice and hanging in there. So Tanya, what makes you a person who can speak on this subject?
Okay, so I'm the CEO of iCom4, and iCom4 very much operates in this space of helping companies build leaders in alignment with their strategic goals. Okay, so I had to put that one in because it's always in alignment with the strategic goals. But prior to that, I worked in the space of understanding people, understanding their strengths, their temperament, their motivation styles. So when I studied performance psychology, we very much looked at what motivates someone, but we actually looked at it from a sports perspective and coaches motivating teams and stuff like that. But it's not too different to the corporate market, right? So I've always had an interest in leaders, and I kind of studied that as a background. But what I found more intriguing was being born in the UK and not leaving Australia until I was in my 30s. So I had a good chunk of my earlier business career in the UK. Then moving to Australia, I was intrigued by the difference in terms of a country, how one country leads and builds effective leaders, and another country has a totally different experience. So I was always intrigued by cultures and countries and how they differ in their leadership space. So experience, I guess, and interest. Solving the global puzzle, because we are a company, right? So, a country, world. So everyone's moving around the world, and I think it's really important for leaders to know that how you lead in one country is not how you lead in another country.
No, it's not. And I'm going to have to give a little bit of a shout out because she's really, really undervaluing her experience and background in this area. Tanya has done a tremendous amount of work in and around developing leaders inside of organizations, working with teams and helping teams become their own leader in their own right. And also I don't want to give away your age, but she did it for quite a while. And in addition to that, Tanya, she is the originator of the concept of our platform, which is based in leadership. And the amount of research that went into the product and the service that we offer is extensive. So I gotta give you a little high five there, because really she's did not give herself justice about what her background is and her experience in this area of leadership development. So myself, I've got quite a bit of experience just in the entrepreneurial individual drive and leadership, owning 3 companies. This is the 3rd one that I've gotten involved with. But in my consulting company, I spent many, many years all the way across the board working with leaders from, defining and executing strategy, helping them figure out within their organization, how do they get their workforce to execute strategy, and that includes development and management, skill set development, and all the way out to how this impacts their customer and their brand. And so we have quite a bit of background. Are we the biggest, baddest gurus in and around leadership development? No, there's plenty out there, and there's plenty of opinions about leadership. And this leads me to our first question. I'm going to ask a series of questions that we want to go through, and just give you a little bit of overview. We're going to talk about, what do we mean when we say this term leadership development, because it is a huge, broad subject, and you could go into 20 different chat rooms and get 20 different responses of what they believe leadership is, etc. We want to talk about why it's important to intentionally develop talent, that we call leadership within a company. And then as we come a little bit further, we want to talk about what are some of the experiences that we've had, and hopefully our audience is going to jump in and start sharing around best practices and what's working, what's not working. And of course, we will absolutely be bringing in our personal opinion around leadership development. And those are our 3 set goals today. And then within that, we have a lot of playroom to have a conversation. Our goal is to keep it around 45 minutes to an hour. So with that said, let's start off. And Tanya, I'm going to have to put you on the spot because there's nobody else on the call. What are we talking about when we say leader?
Well, the focus I kind of take on it, there's heaps of ways to look at leadership, and I think a combination of all is the best way to approach it. But I like to look at it in terms of, your standards. You've got your manager, which is task-driven, you've got your leader, which is leadership-driven, inspiring people, engaging people. So I like to look at how effective leaders are in terms of connecting with people, motivating people, inspiring people, as opposed to demotivating people, telling people what to do, as opposed to that. And because when a leader has strong relationships and strong connections with the people who they're working with, they're more likely to be able to influence them when change is required within the organization. Mm-hmm. Not only that, they are building the wellness and happiness of the workforce. Mm-hmm. So it has a roll-on effect, Whatever we do in life, if we're miserable, we can make other people feel miserable, right? So a leadership perspective, the more in tune and self-aware a leader is about different types of people, how they're motivated, how they like to be led, and the more flexible a leader is, the stronger they are. So that's how I look at leadership from a terms of relationships, connecting, motivating, engaging.
So do you think leaders, when we think about leadership, and it was interesting because I did quite a bit of posting of this out into LinkedIn, encouraging people to come and join the conversation, and hopefully some of you maybe are here via that avenue. But it was interesting because one of the posts was leadership comes from the top, The CEO is the leader, and it was really interesting perspective. I thought it was kind of interesting in the sense that I believe leadership is throughout an organization. And, for example, iCOM4 is a relatively small company at this point in time. We have the founders and we have some other partners, but we all need to be leaders right now. We all need to be leaders in our own right when it comes to this company and moving it forward. But as we grow, we need to think about the leadership in terms of what's the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. And do you believe that their leaders should be developed throughout the organization all the way to an individual leader, individual contributor taking on a leadership role?
Yeah, if you can do it in the most cost-effective way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all down to time and to finances for a company, isn't it, really? I mean, I am a strong believer that companies keep developing leaders and developing people with no thought behind what they're developing them in and why they're developing them in that skill. So there's like a off the shelf, oh, that's the latest kind of philosophy or latest training or methodology. Let's put everybody through that. So it's like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to clone your workforce because that just does not work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think as long as a company can make more effective use of their training budgets and look at different ways of developing people so they're hitting the mark straight away, right? So people are developing at a faster pace because you're not bombarding them with too much information, and you're developing leaders in alignment with the strategic goals of the business. Then you free up finances, you free up time, you free up money, which allows you to start filtering, pockets of training throughout the organization, because everybody's a leader, and to ignore people who aren't leaders is not actually building the pipeline of your own employees, moving them into higher roles. That answered your question, did it?
Kind of. You're jumping ahead. Don't do that. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
We can't have our normal conversation on Blab, Tanya. We have to stay structured.
sorry.
Well, so any thoughts out there? Anybody out there want to jump into a seat as we kind of closing this portion, talking about what is this idea of leadership? As far as I'm personally concerned, I believe it's a concept it's bounced around and it's thrown around. And Tanya and I have done extensive research in internal and external leadership development program and look at the commonalities. And it's in the industry, it's looking at certain people get developed as leaders and other people don't. And should everybody get developed as a leader to learn those leadership skills, those concepts of leadership? Is that important within a company? And that does lead me to my next comment around why is it important to intentionally develop this talent we're calling leadership? And we, for those of you, some of you are like, well, wait, management, leadership management. We're really talking about this idea of leadership, but there's always an element of management also in there too. Why is it so important to do this?
But I'm just...
Okay,
this is another conversation we have, right? I'm not the type of person who can...
I know. Well,
jumping back.
This is the best. This is the most structured our conversations ever are right now, you guys. I'm just letting you know that.
Jumping back to the second question.
So the first question.
You talk about developing everybody as leaders. It's really, and I think this is why, it'd be nice if somebody jumped in, because it's just our opinions, right? And there's no way in this world that, I would like to think that our opinions are set in gold, but they're not. So it's interesting.
You don't have a joint seat?
How, if you were to develop leaders throughout the business, how can a company do that? How can they do it effectively?
Mm-hmm.
What are your views on that, Janice? How do you think a company can look at how it can develop their leadership capability way beyond managers, frontline leaders, etc.?
I'm sorry. I'm messing with Sandy because she said that I don't have a join button, so I'm trying to figure out why I don't have a join button showing. Does anybody else see a join button?
Whereabouts would it be?
It would be right underneath us. Oh, there we go. Let's let Jackie in. Hi, Jackie.
Is that what you were talking about? Was the accept button?
Yes, yes.
I think she just had to jump in the seat first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got one more seat open. So if you're, it should just say join, and you just click it, and then I'll accept you in. Well, it's interesting because what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about everybody. Everybody is a leader in this, big global organizational way. I just mean in terms of looking at how we're well, and I think this is going to go a little bit into our further conversation about how we're approaching leadership development and how it's isolated to certain people at certain, and I think we need to be looking at these skill sets in a broader way.
Do you need to accept her, Janice?
She's coming in. I already accept her. Sandy, you should be coming in.
Huh. She's still pulsing.
Sandy, you're pulsing.
She's got a heartbeat.
Oh, there she is. All right.
You can't hear my dog barking, can you?
Yes.
There she is. Yay.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, ladies. Can you hear me?
I can hear the dog.
Yes. Yeah, you're very soft. You're pretty soft, but you're fine.
I'm trying a different phone today, so I'm not 100% sure it's working.
It's working just fine.
Perfect.
So Jackie, let's have you chime in first. What so far you've been listening to Tanya and I ramble on about this, and what are your thoughts?
I just walked in the room, sweetie, because I saw your pretty face. So
Okay. Well, Sandy, I'll turn it over to you then. And what are your thoughts?
A lot of what we've been talking about here is leading people, leadership development. And if you take the review of it, leadership in an organization is about leading to that health and success of the organization. So should everybody be involved in that? I don't think they should. I think that everybody should be involved at some level of setting goals and using any resource they can to help achieve that goal, and whether that's inspiring people and motivating people to join in. But there's some people that if you spend an inordinate amount of time trying to make a leader out of someone who does not want to do that, then you're not going to hit your marks. You have to, part of leading is understanding, as Tanya said, understanding that are making up your team and knowing who doesn't want to, as I put it, be a cook, who doesn't want to be a leader. And there are people, it sounds great in concept, but when you're in the real world and you're trying to get something done, not every single person on your team wants to be a leader. And to be a leader yourself, you have to acknowledge that and not try and philosophically say we have to have a leader at every level. Yeah, you probably do, but not everyone at every level will want to be a leader.
Agreed. Yeah, otherwise you end up with all chiefs and no Indians.
You end up with a lot of chiefs of people who want to be Indians. And I do agree that there are leaders at every level, and they bring something that is greatly important to the organization at every level. But if we think that every person at every level is a leader, that's an exhaustive amount of time that's not going to drive you to your goal.
If I look at the, I'm sorry, Tanya, did you want to say something? I've cut you off twice. I apologize. No sound.
Tanya?
Tanya, you're muted.
You're muted, honey. You're muted.
I was looking at a comment that John just made about leadership begins with knowing thyself and leading thyself. And I think that there's elements to leadership. There's leading yourself as an individual to be self-motivated, and then there's leading other people. And you just highlighted the personality style, which is,
I agree. Everybody can be a leader in their own mind. If I was the boss and I want to develop you as a leader in your area, your department, then it would have to be your will to do so. You know, a lot of people join a company, they want to collect a paycheck, and they don't want to stick out. They just want to do their job, go home. That makes them happy. They don't want to lead. They don't want to have people reporting to them. I don't know whether we're talking about privately held companies or big corporations here, but leaders in general have to want to be leaders, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if we look at the topic is, what do you think is the best way to develop leaders in a company? We're not really talking about, you know, how you succeed life, but when you're talking about a company, you're talking about setting goals and driving to those goals. So when you're developing leaders in a company, you will not have, if you have 2,000 people in your company and they are all leaders, you probably aren't going to hit your goal as easily as if you have some people who are actually executing.
Is Sandy audio only to anybody else?
Yeah, she's audio only right now.
Okay.
Oh, I can see my face. Should I?
I just wanted to see if I needed to refresh or you did.
I don't. My camera light's on, and I can see myself. I'm not sure. Sorry about that. I can go out and come back in. Was I on camera before?
Yes.
Tanya, I also made you host too, Tanya, just in case there's a malfunction.
Oh,
Did I come back on?
Yes, you're back.
Okay. I don't know.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. You do need to. I mean, when we talk about this idea of leadership, I guess I personally I take it down to what's said on the side about knowing thyself and knowing who you are and understanding who you are, and then understanding who people are, other people are. But I do agree that you can't have everybody be leaders. But it is important. So we're all in agreement. This is important. And I think the industry says it's important. So let's talk a little bit about why it's important. Why should a company, and I know large companies get it, they invest, but how about some of those smaller companies who aren't investing in this idea of leadership development? Why should they? Why is this important?
So you have somebody to carry on. You know, especially in small companies that are running very lean, if you don't develop leaders and something happens to the leader, or leaders need to grow and be elsewhere, you've got nobody to mind the store, so to speak. So I think we need to replicate. They need to replicate themselves so that business is normal, whether they're there or not. There again, not everybody. You know, you're not going to ask the janitor to step in and be president, but I think you have to have somebody to depend on that knows how your business, your mission statement, how you run your business, what your values are for that business. But there's a lot of small business people that think they're the only one that can do it, and they're there 120 hours a week, and that business is alive strictly because they're there and putting in that 120 hours a week. So, yeah, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot if you don't.
Yeah, and you think small, so you're thinking small, like maybe maybe one or two people in a company. But I've seen this in companies with 500 employees. They're still acting. That they have not passed the baton down to the next layer to put them and teach them how to be leaders of the company.
Absolutely, it's crippling.
Yeah, it is, and it's for an owner. It's absolutely crippling because you don't ever get vacation, you don't ever get a break, and you're exhausted. And so, Sandy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that small businesses need to develop for the same reasons that big companies need to develop leaders. It could be succession planning, as Jackie's talking about, but it's also leaders are about looking for opportunities and looking for potential pitfalls and danger zones on a constant basis, whether it's strategically within the organization or it's in developing partnerships or networking throughout the community to find new clients or where customers are standing. You have to have a leadership mentality throughout your organization. Not necessarily every person, but when someone in your company is out into the world and they're shopping in a store, and I'm listening to hear if a customer is saying, you know, it would really be better if we did this. The leadership mentality, and that's the mentality of constantly be driving to achieving your goals and bettering your goals for the best of the organization. And a small company where it's only one person or two people who are trying to keep eyes and ears on everything about what the marketplace is doing, what the competition is doing, what trends are coming up, what's changing. It's impossible. And you have to have everybody have that mentality.
Okay. Tanya, you want to chime in? You could be muted.
I've got a lot of activity in here today, so I'm trying to things going on all around me. Fundamental. I mean, if we look at it from our business, leadership is fundamental to achieve the company's goals.
Mm-hmm.
Without anybody getting themselves so sick that they're trying to do it all themselves, you know. So, to me, leadership is the key to business. Once you've got your product, once you've got your, you know, fundamentals in place, it's then down to the leadership in your workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Execute, and leadership is about executing in the same direction.
Yep, getting everybody. Yeah, that's it. And the bottom line is that, you know, what is it? Herb, with the CEO of Southwest, says, you know, I could leave our strategic plan on the seat of an airplane, and it's the people that are going to execute. And it really, in the differentiator in the market today is really your ability to execute, because so many things are repeatable. So many people have access to how you're doing something. And it's the people that make the biggest difference.
Well, and you
business
were
owner
last week.
Size company, whoever's at the top, they cannot possibly be communicating with everybody in the workforce. So they require their leadership team to lead and motivate, you know, each team, each individual, so that everybody is on the right track. And you can have different leadership styles to achieve that, right? It doesn't matter how you're going to lead or what your leadership style is. But I think the goal is really important, to have that goal. And what is each leader trying to get the team to do? How do they have their team on board, follow them in the most productive and healthy way for everybody involved?
Well, Dennis and Tanya, you talked about this week with culture. When you talk about leadership, in part is if you leave a strategic plan on a plane, your competition picks it up. They can copy it, but if it is very difficult to replicate culture, even if you try. So, in terms of leadership from the top, and then as you trickle down, to have people who are intentionally setting that culture and then reinforcing it throughout is one of your biggest differences. And it doesn't matter what size of the company you are, if you don't know and you're not setting that and living that every day through intentional leadership of culture setting and reinforcement, then somebody can steal your idea, steal your process, whatever. But that culture is going to set you apart.
Yeah. Busy. Trevor, you say our business has 3 people. Do we need leadership? I'm going to say absolutely yes. You need leadership, and you need to think about leadership. And, you know, through this process, Tanya and I have had some experiences, and believe me, if we don't look at the leadership and what behaviors and what's happening with what roles people are taking and how much of a leader or not leader they are, it can absolutely impact your business.
Oh, it's amazing what one person can do to a business.
Mm-hmm.
One person. Yeah, that whole, I mean, we're not in recruitment, but if anybody is at recruitment, you know,
one person can hugely impact. And yeah.
Especially for small business as well. But I think in larger companies, you can hide a bad egg.
Yeah.
But in the smaller companies, it can make or break you. Yeah.
So I think it's even more critical when you look at smaller companies.
Yeah. So yeah, leadership, developing leaders and making sure everybody's walking the talk and walking down the same path. And if they're not, why? Are they suggesting a different path because it might be a better path, you know? It's not about, you know, that everybody communicating together and working together effectively.
Oh, okay. Trevor, you agree with that. Okay, I just see your note there. Sorry, I think you asked the question. It was a little bit before we got to it. So let's sum up this idea of why this is important. Why is it important that intentionally developing this concept of leaders in an organization is important? Tanya, I want to start with you. We'll go backwards. We'll go around the circle that way.
Can you repeat that? I was reading the panel.
So let's summarize this conversation we've been having. Is why is it important to develop leaders? Why is it important to intentionally develop leaders? If you want to think about that.
I'll go back to what Sandy was just saying, culture.
Culture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you say, culture eats strategy for dead.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to build a highly profitable, successful business, you need a strong leadership team in place.
Mm-hmm.
Can't ignore the leadership team.
So, and culture develops whether you intentionally do it or unintentionally do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it's interesting, isn't it? You've got the written rules versus the unwritten rules. You've got, your values on display everywhere. And then, so you've got your values on display everywhere. And then you've got the behaviors of the workforce, right? That's your culture. Your culture is the behaviors of the workforce, not what's your values on the ceiling. Sorry, I just
He's got painters in the house. Oh my goodness,
Wow.
You do. Wow.
I'm trying to find a location which is quiet. Can't go in there. Can I go in here? Okay.
Have you in the back bathroom or something?
You'll be in the marble room.
Yeah, she'll be standing in the bathtub going, how's this sound? Yeah.
So how about you, Sandy? You want to sum up? What are your thoughts? Why is this important?
Well, my thoughts on is a lot of people focus on skills development and skills transfer. And we were talking in the segment about smaller companies. And I think that there is a distinction that has to be made between skills development and leadership development. Skills development is just that. It's about transferring a skill. I know how to do X. Leadership development is really understanding how to change your own behavior and how to change other people's behavior. Mm-hmm. Whether that's people who are on you or people or your customers or your clients, whoever it is. So it's critical that you want to get to that level that you have behavior change. And I've seen that with small business owners where they're frustrated with people on their team, but their focus is on skill development, not really on behavior change. And I saw Busy Fizzy ask, should it be one of those three or do we need to add a fourth? And my response would be, it depends on who those three are and what their potential is to develop them as a leader, because you shouldn't have to add to your bottom line to have a leader on your team, but you have to be able to have the talent that's there, and they have to have enough time in the day to focus on being able to look for those holes and to develop that talent. And if they're going 15 hours a day with no break, they're probably going to focus on skills transfer, not talent development.
Interesting.
What about you, Jackie?
Pretty much the same that Sandy said. I just believe that you have to have leaders that can replicate the culture of the company for the overall longevity of the company. Because I've worked in corporate America for many, many years, and you see everything goes along and it kind of goes and it peaks, and boy, about the time it peaks, you lose one of the key players, they move on, they retire, whatever, and then you see this coming back down till somebody else gets that vision, and the vision sometimes changes. So I think depending, Trevor, I keep looking at yours, and I agreed with Sandy in that, no, you shouldn't have to add to payroll to get a leader. But there again, I don't know whether you have a president and 2 janitors, or whether you have, and I don't mean to belittle janitors. Please, don't send me emails. I'm just saying janitors are very important to the organization, and by all means, they're a necessity. The positions in your company that need to be developed and monitored, do you have somebody there that can do it just like you want it done, or just like you do it, if in fact you're the president? So I think at the top level of the company, you have to have somebody that can step up. Look at what's happened to that company since Walt passed away. They've gone through some really hard times. And it wasn't until the nephew now has stepped up and said, this is not the way Walt wanted it. This was not his vision, and we're going to take it back to bare bones. And they took huge losses. But they're now coming back to the original Walt vision. And so I think to prevent that, you have to have somebody in your organization that if, God forbid, something happens to the top leaders, you have somebody that carries it on tomorrow morning just the way that you would want it done. And I think that takes lots of time. It takes someone on the other end that's willing to see it your way, willing to carry it on, not waiting for you to die so they can do it the way they want to do it. But you know what I'm saying? That truly sees the vision. The company's profitable. The company's doing well. Everybody's happy in their positions. But you're going to have those few people that I want to be you when I grow up. And those are the people that you really need to develop and pay attention to.
And I think, can I jump on one thing with what Jackie's saying is the vision may stay the same, but you want to develop leaders who understand that as times change, as competition changes, your strategies to achieve that vision may change. So to lead, you want to be able to have somebody who is looking out for those types of things, and not just saying, okay, this is how we've always done it, so this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very true.
And you have anything else you want to add to that? We're just closing. We're kind of wrapping up the conversation around why is it so important to intentionally develop talent that we're calling leadership.
I don't think so. I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. We all know it's important. We all know why. A company will want to make sure that they're developing their leaders. No, so I think you're fine. Unless anybody else wants to make any comments, move to your next question.
Okay. Any other comments in the great topic? Many more blabs indeed. Oh, yes, absolutely. This is definitely this was Tanya and I the other day going, we should just chat about leadership, because we chat almost every day about these kinds of topics. And like I said, usually they're not quite this structured. They're a little bit more free-flowing and all over the place. But so let's go to the last thing is, what are some of the best practices or things that you've seen that have really worked in developing leaders or not worked in developing leaders? So what are some of the kind of hints and tips for those who are watching, thinking about leadership development, and maybe some pitfalls to avoid? And I'll let whoever wants to jump in first go.
Okay, I'll go because I'm so shy. I think that one of the biggest pitfalls is thinking that theory always translates into practice. That where's
my hands? Where's my hands? Oh my gosh, yes.
There's so much when you get under pressure. That's a big part of where I is how do you develop leadership that stays smart when you're under pressure? Because we'll all agree, sort of what we just said, we all agree why leadership's important, why leadership develops important. But when you've got a deadline, when you've got a customer or client screaming at you, when your numbers look terrible, it all goes out the window. So when you're training skills and when you're developing behavior change, you've got to replicate real world situations. It can't be theory. It can't just be sitting in a classroom and then never talking about it again. It's got to get people doing it in real world situations under pressure, letting them make a mistake, not hanging them from the nearest tree for it, but really letting people make mistakes, because that real world pressure is what's going to ultimately be the behavior change.
Very nicely put. Yes. Tanya or Sandy, you want to jump in?
You mean Jackie?
I mean, Jackie.
You mean Jackie?
Sorry, Jackie. Oh.
The other Sandy.
Yeah, the other
Yeah,
Sandy.
we look similar. Our color,
I
our
know.
colors are similar.
You both have pink
Yeah,
on.
I
I got confused.
That's it. You got the memo, and so did
Yeah.
Tanya. What's wrong with you today? Pink on, girl.
So the question is, what are some of the ways you can develop leaders that you've seen really work well, and what are some of the pitfalls to avoid? So, one, both, whichever one, or both. Jackie.
Okay.
Well, I absolutely think both. I think you need to shadow that person, be in their back pocket, let them see the good days and the bad days and everything in between. And depending on where their level is to begin with, I don't think there's anything wrong with sending them out to some classes or courses, or asking them to take some additional
We're losing a little
courses in how to do specific things. I think they need to be in the thick of things to see that, things are not always rosy. Your numbers aren't always good, and end of the month you're shipping everything that's not nailed down, and the economy affects business. How do we react? And you have difficult employees. How do you deal with that? When you have to let someone go, or you have to counsel somebody. I mean, there's so many different, small or large business, there's so many different facets of things that you have to be able to control to keep things on that level, that even keel. Even though things aren't on an even keel, you have to treat them as such, and you have to handle it as it comes up. And I don't think that there's any classroom atmosphere that can teach you that. I mean, it's just learn by doing.
Yeah. So I think that any training or any coaching, mentoring, anything like that, is more effective when we think about it as an ongoing process, not just a come and attend a one-day session and voila, you'll go back to the workforce and you'll apply all those skills and everyone will be happy ever after. Right? So I think that, how about you? I mean, we ran a lot of leadership training courses, and I've also sat in on a lot of training courses. And when I was younger, before I got into this space, I was sat in a lot of training because I worked for this big telecoms company, and they love training, sending people on training. So I was, like, in 1 month, I think I was on training for 8 days of the month. So it was bordering on, I can't do my job here because I'm on so much training. So I would sit there and actually sit there I was younger, with a bit of an attitude, saying, I don't want to be here. Why am I here? Right? So I think that when we kind of take that, when that approach is just training, without mentoring or coaching, I think it doesn't consider how people's habits are hard to break, and it doesn't take into account the level of accountability that people have to apply some of those changes. Mm-hmm. So any development is more effective when it's coupled with mentoring or coaching, and it's ongoing. There's an accountability, responsibility, attachment to that training in some way, because that's what's going to help people break habits. Because as you know, and as John was saying, you take our temperament and our natural style of working, then we will fall back into our comfort zones, right? Because we've got these other, outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So, especially when under pressure, Sandy, you said that when people are under pressure, you fall back into your comfort zone, and therefore to expand your comfort zone requires expanding your habits, I guess, like you've got new habits, new productive habits, and that requires ongoing application, ongoing accountability, and not just kind of attend a one-day workshop and fix the problem.
And I do think that is one of the biggest differences where we started earlier talking about, is everyone in the organization going to be a leader? That's where you get roadblocked a lot of the time, is some people, you do have to expand so much beyond your natural personality, your natural style, to lead different people and to lead in different situations. It may not be your most comfortable place, but you have to get comfortable enough with it and adept enough that you can adapt in the moment. And that's where a lot of people don't want to move into that type of role.
And some people are more adaptable than other people, right? And when really effectively, because they're adaptable leaders, right? They can see what's going on in the situation. They can take control, their own self-control, and they can change their own behavior to adapt to the environment. So they're like, so when companies are looking at developing a strong leadership team, I think people's adaptability should be a criteria in where they sit on that leadership ladder.
Yeah, or at least their potential to be adaptable. You know, we were all like you, Tanya, when we were younger. We all sat there going, why am I doing this? I don't need to do And I think even with adaptability, we get so tied into what works so easily for us and what gives us that success that it takes time to even figure out that, well, maybe we do need to adapt as opposed to the world adapting to us.
And I think I walked in with that attitude because nobody had told me the benefit to myself and to my role on why I should be at the training. I was just said, go and learn this new skill. I'm like, I don't want to. Why?
Well, I think we all look at training. We all tend to look at training the same, I think, is that the training means that I have to work an extra hour or I have to do the work of someone who is in training. It's a negative. It's not necessarily.
Or I got to catch up on a day's work because you just pulled me out of my work.
And a lot of training does focus on skills transfer as opposed to true behavior change. And I think, especially in this day and age, in the, let me YouTube it, Google it, blab it, whatever it is, it's like we feel like we can pick it up faster than having to sit in a half-day training session. It's like, it's, a half-hour and we're like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to give up a Saturday.
That's right.
Everybody come in 4 hours on a Saturday. We're going to learn how to count green witches.
I never got sent away on a weekend. That would have really upset me when I was younger.
I will. Janice asked earlier what was one of our best trainings, and it was one that I did when I was a senior executive. I was one who was in the training, and it was a week-long leadership development. It was people who were from all over the world. It was a global organization, and it was a simulated program where we would all sit in a conference room and then we would go sit in breakout groups with a computer simulating real world situations in the industry we were in, and then it would calculate results, and then we would go in and we would sit there, and it was questions. Some of them were as simple as, you're in a high level meeting, but it was simulating it, and your wife is on the phone. Do you take the call? And and I of course said no. And then we go, well, the husband, whatever. And we go back in the room, and he says, okay, you've now just created an issue at home. It was very good because it simulated. It's very rare that one thing is happening at a time when we're in and it could be people being impacted by something personal going on, or you've got a client in one area, and how do you make those decisions? And telling people that is very different from being in that situation, because on paper it sounds so easy to say, I'm not going to take my spouse's call when I have a big client presentation due in 5 minutes, but the call you didn't take was your kid fell down into the schoolyard and broke his leg. We don't take into account all of the factors that impact how well we can lead. And so that was the best one that I ever went to because it came closest to simulating real world situations.
And did you maintain, if you look at, how much content was shared with you, how much of that content do you think you actually took on board? And
I took a lot. I took a lot. And I think even as I listened to one of the things that we're saying here, that was when I first understood the distinction between, between training and real behavior change. And it's also where I understood that, you have people, when you look at somebody that you're training, you can make, you've got talent, you've got skills, and you've got attitude. And pretty much everything that you're going to be able to do with that person is going to flow out of one of those three things. So to me, that really did help shape my understanding of how to develop my people differently.
Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate that not everybody can have the luxury, of having
right.
and attending something so powerful like that, because
right.
all of the programs just don't cut it.
No. And I think it is because of that, and I make the distinction because of that training or development program. It was actually a leadership development program. That's why I'm so adamant about the distinction between training and development, because one really is about skills transfer and the other really is about changing the way you think and the way you behave. And that's the part. I think there's fantastic training out there, but if we kid ourselves and think it's going to be real behavior change and real thinking change, we've got to layer on top of that.
Yeah. I can see somebody asked a question there.
Yeah, Stella or Lisa, did you want to come in and have a seat real quick? I can jump out.
Oh, I can jump out too, if somebody wants to come in.
Skills transfer, development, right behavior, no thanks, she says. Okay, just wanted to make sure you had it. It sounded like you had something to say, and we want to make sure we hear it.
So this is great. We're almost coming up on an hour, and we've chatted about all the topics that I had on my agenda. I had three that I want to talk about, and kind of this idea of what is leadership, and some of the why it's important, and then some of the best practices or pitfalls, and we've covered those. Do you guys want to quickly just summarize real quickly the techniques that you've seen work real quick, and then maybe one pitfall in developing leaders? So what works and what is the pitfalls that you've seen? Just one. And so we kind of give our audience maybe a little summary here. Tanya, I'll let you start. What is the...
Okay, so the most powerful way of developing leaders is identify what it is that each leader needs to change for themselves, so that they understand why they need to change that skill, and that they can actually link it with benefit for themselves. Teach them smaller pockets of information, and then back it up with accountability to help them change their habits. A pitfall of a lot of the training programs at the moment is, I think, it's relaying too much information which is not applicable to them, or they don't see the relevance of it to them. I think companies are wasting money on training programs by taking that approach because they're not getting behavior change.
And I think it's not just money, but it's mental and physical time, emotional energy, where people are spending time in training and nothing's changing in their world. There's nothing changing within the behaviors of their team. There's nothing changing in terms of what's happening when they're out there actually practicing what they do. And I think there's an emotional and a mental toll that goes along with that. So Jackie, I'll turn it to you. What are your last few sum up thoughts?
She brought up an interesting point about, or you just brought up about nothing happening. I think at some point you can't beat a dead horse. Either people want it and are deserving of it or they're not. So at some point you can introduce them to the thought that, hey, you can be a leader and I have faith in you, but it's that, are you going to have to go back and also develop the personality and the confidence and the, those kinds of things. But pitfalls would be consistency. Just stay consistent with your vision for them and see if they rise to the occasion.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. Sandy?
I'm going to combine my one thing with my pitfall because if I could only pick one thing, it's walk your talk. If you want people creative, then be creative. If you want people to be respectful of other people, then be respectful of other people, and on and on and on. And I think we put people in training and we tell them, this is how you can be creative, and then we phone it in. So that ability to use a jargon word, but it's apt, is model what you want people to do. Doesn't they should be a replica of you, but
right.
But it means that you need to show that you're gonna give what you're asking them to give.
Yeah, that's true.
Nice summary.
Your audio.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
We're at the top of the hour, and so I want to go ahead and close this blab down. But if you guys, great conversation. I love it. I would love to do some more of these and in and around the subject, from coaching to, there's so many moving parts here that we could have robust conversations about. So, but I do want to, because I know that I personally know that sitting on a blab any more than an hour is a lot. So if you guys wanted, I know Tanya's got things to do, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. I just want to thank you guys, and audience. I want to thank you for sticking in there, and Barry, and I followed you, John. I'm following you, and so I look forward to doing some more of these.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you, Tanya and Sandy.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Sandy. See you soon.
Bye. Thanks for letting me join in.